You're listening to The Pivot Point, where we unpack the defining moments that shift careers and lives. I'm your host, Laura Dionisio, founder of Lead Intact, and my mission is to spotlight the raw, real stories behind career pivots, the fears, the hopes, the messy middles, and the bold decisions that follow. If you're feeling stuck or quietly wondering what's next, I hope these stories help you see yourself a little more clearly and inspire you to start moving toward your own dream life. Let's begin. Hey there, before we get started, I want to give you a quick content note. In this episode, my guest shares her story of abuse and trauma. We keep the focus on healing and empowerment, but I know this may be triggering for some listeners. Please listen with care, take breaks if you need, or come back to it later when you feel resourced. Your well-being always comes first. Welcome to The Pivot Point. I have an amazing guest today, Laura Grabavoy. I cannot stop smiling. Even 2 hours ago, I was going to go to the gym, but I was like, no, what if I'm late? I can't be. I must be here prepared and ready for the amazing Laura Grabavoy. I will read her bio in a second, but just as a kind of casual introduction, Laura G is an amazing coach of mine personally. And I don't like her just because her name is also Laura, but truly you'll see at the end of this episode, you're going to be like, oh, that's it. So thank you, Laura, for being here. And I'm just going to go ahead and read your amazing bio. Laura is a business strategist, intuitive guide, and the director of programs for She Sells and Superhuman Selling, where she leads with heart and precision as an integrator helping scale a transformational brand. With over 30 years in private wealth management and high-level leadership, Laura now supports purpose-driven entrepreneurs and corporate leaders to align their business strategies with soul and activate exponential growth from the inside out. At the core of her work is helping leaders embody their next level, combining identity alchemy, energy mastery, and practical execution. She plays a pivotal role in delivering the She Sells framework of the 4 quadrants of quantum sales growth, guiding clients to shift their sales energy, elevate belief systems, and lead with authenticity. On her strategic role, Laura is the visionary author of Choose You Anyway, an upcoming book and global movement that empowers others to reclaim their voice, honor their truth, and lead from within. She encourages others to tune into the saying, no matter the noise, even when it's hard. You're not here to fit in. You're here to trust who you are. Choose you anyway. I had goosebumps. Whether she's coaching high-achieving clients through identity, guiding corporate teams through soulful sales frameworks, or channeling intuitive downloads to unlock clarity, Laura is redefining what it means to be a leader in today's world. Round of applause for Laura. Thank you so much for being here. I am legit. I'm excited. I'm always excited to get a chance to connect with you. And I'm extra excited for my audience to get a chance to connect with you.
I'm just tearing up over you reading I'm there's so much history in that and so much growth that I just love you reading that. And I love being here. And yes, we have amazing names, Laura G and Laura D.
We do. So I just want to start off with, because your story is such a powerful one. So maybe we can start there, because I know there's the thing that you did the most recently, which we'll get to. But before we get to the thing, listeners are what are you talking about? Lead us through the beginning of your journey and how did it all start?
Yeah, I'll go back to 5 years ago. I was sitting on my couch and I was in a place that everything outside of me was perfect. I had the perfect job. I had the perfect house, the perfect car. And I just remember at the time I had some things come up. My mom, I'd not really had a relationship with her just because of some past trauma. So as I sat there, I was reflecting on the couch, my mom called me and it brought me to a point in time where I was sitting on a couch with her when I was little. And I remember in that moment, there was so much trauma that I experienced growing up. And my mom was really young when she had me. She was 16 years old. And here I am at 16 sitting on the couch with her. And I remember that was the first time that I chose myself.
Mm.
And I remember sitting there and I remember feeling afraid, feeling anxious. But I knew inside that what I was about to do was going to change her life and my life. As I think about it and I looked back at it, she had experienced a lot of trauma. And I remember at that point in time, I really didn't think there was a situation that had happened that was pretty impactful, that she almost died because of the abuse that she endured from my stepdad. And I remember I, at a young age, was like, I'm changing this. I'm going to do something about this. And I remember sitting on that couch back when I was 16 years old. And I didn't know it at the time, but this is where my message comes about choosing myself. And I was choosing her, that I was going to make change and that things are going to happen and things are going to be different. And so I shared with her about some of the trauma and the abuse that I had endured from my stepdad. I thought he was my dad at the time, but um, he was sexually abusive to me,
Mm.
and my mom wasn't aware of it. Fast forward back to the couch where I was at, which I was 45 years old. And all the things that I had experienced up until that point, I had lived my life like I knew I wanted better and different in my life. And I'd built this life that I was really proud of. But yet I still had these emotions inside this trauma that I really didn't know how to shift out of. And so I was sitting on the couch. I remember her calling me, and she'd not been a part of my life. I remember she called me. She told me she had cancer. I remember at the time too, it was like during COVID. I'm like, I got a bottle of wine and the bag of M&Ms, plain M&Ms, looking for any kind of like
Mhm.
relief because of the resistance that's there. But I remember reflecting, I'm like, my mom, this is going on. My youngest kid just went, my son Braden went to college. And so he's off. My daughter had left to go to the military, and she has her own trauma that she was dealing with and she left. So I'm sitting on the couch reflecting on that. And then reflecting and looking at my husband and like, is this all there is right now? Like,
Mm.
seriously, like it was a lot that I was carrying. And what was really cool is on that couch, I found this woman, my own mentor. Her name is Elise Archer, which now I'm in her programs. And I was sitting there, and she had this series at the time. It was called Releasing Resistance to What You Want. And that was so powerful for me. And I remember she was reading the book Ask and It Is Given by Jerry and Esther Hicks. And at that time, she talked about the law of attraction. And she even talked about her own story and her own inner work that she was doing. And but yet she had this huge growth, and she was calling in more in her life. And I was like, oh my God, how is she doing this? And it was just inspiring to me. And I remember when one of the series, she talked about the emotional guidance scale. And I was like, what is that? And I remember at that point, I'd asked a question that changed my life. One question I asked
What was the question?
was, how do I feel better? How do I feel better when I feel so hurt by others? She had touched something inside of me, knowing that I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back at it, that I had all these emotions in me that I didn't know how to shift out of. So you hear a little bit of my story of, and again, like fill in the gaps, right? There's a lot
Mhm.
of gaps that are there, but the main part of the story, and I was like, I just felt, man, why do I feel like everybody's against me? Why do I feel like my life is, it just felt so hard, like I was pushing. And success to me was, it was like I had to work hard, I had to grind, I had to make it happen.
I do want to go back
Yeah.
because you said something so powerful that I hear a lot, and it's that the outside everything seemed perfect. So I would love to hone in that moment. What was it like when, I don't know, was it a moment? Was it a slow realization that it was like, oh, there's more to this success, working hard that I've been letting myself see? Take us through that because I feel like a lot of the listeners would really resonate with feeling that way.
Yeah. And I didn't realize it. So the beauty of like transformation and growing and growth is that one of the things that I love is Steve Jobs actually, he talks about this, is that he talks about you connect the dots looking back. And
Mm.
that's what I do in my life, so that, I'm like, oh, and I'm continuing the growth and the transformation even today. But back then, the question I asked was really powerful. And her answer to me was basically, it's a choice on how I feel. And I was like, oh, interesting. No, what does that mean? I'm like, it's everybody else around me, right? She was like, let me take you through a quick exercise. And she said, think of something that makes you happy. And, I was like, I love my kids. I mean, I love them. I adore them. And I thought about them. And I'm like, you know what? I could feel the shift in my body. And part of me was like, it can't be that simple and easy,
Mm.
but can it? I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And so then she said, your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. And I was like, what does that mean? And I knew there is a part of my soul that I got that, but then there was resistance there. However, what I loved about what she shared with me was I'm one that I've always been on this path of growth and transformation. And I'm always in spaces, I'm always reading things to better myself. And I've gone to therapy, I've done everything you could think of,
Mm.
like crazy things, even. I remember she shared something with me that nobody ever shared with me. And I thought, and if I look back at it now, this outer part of things was my relationships with others was a big thing. And it was like, man, yes, I had a nice home, a nice car. I had, a job that I made okay money at the time. It was okay. It was comfortable. But I was like, why am I not happy? And so this outer piece of things is I was getting my happiness from the people around me, like trying to please them, or I remember finishing school. I remember like getting the job, the title. I remember having the car. My kids were in good schools. I mean, my God, my daughter's a Marine. And it was like, these things should make me happy. And I'm like, why do I not feel good inside? And what I realized is that it was all this inner turmoil that was inside of me. I didn't know what to really do with it.
Mhm.
And one of the things I know now as I've done the work is that, and I have strong women that I grew up around who took care of family. My grandmother, basically, I look at her and she took care of my grandfather in her home when he had a stroke. My uncle, which is a fun fact, is he was 6 months older than me. So we went to high school together. So he was more like a brother.
Oh.
And I know it was so fun. Like, he played football, but he actually, his senior year, he ended up actually getting into ended up being bedridden. And my grandmother took care of him until he was the age of 40. So it's like, I was taught, you just push through, you persevere, you push through, you move on. There was a story of get over yourself, like get over this, just push it down and go on. And what I didn't realize is that I wasn't able to really fully heal all this stuff inside of me because I was pushing it
Mhm.
down and wasn't allowing myself to just heal. I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine that was doing the work, and she shared, so I was like, I just need to get over this. I just need to get past this. And she paused and held me in the space for a moment. And she was like, did you hear what you just said? And I was like, no. And she reflected back what I said. And I was like, oh, I said that? Oh, I didn't even realize that was a story. And so I was like, oh, I don't get to get over this. I get to heal this.
Mm.
And I really, truly learned how to go within myself and the emotions, identify these emotions, and really heal a lot of the stuff that, and I was like, once I learned how to do this, my life started to change around me. Some relationships fell away. I ended up calling in a job where I doubled my corporate income. a six-figure income, it was like I'd stop trying to
Whoa.
prove my worth to everybody around me.
Were you looking for that opportunity at
Yeah.
that time, or was it just as you were healing, it just
Yeah, what's fun is this mentor, this coach that I talk about, I ended up investing in her program. That one short conversation changed like my whole thinking, and the way she talked about how she did her inner work and her quantum leap, which I think it was like 100,000, or her annual income, which was 100,000 into her monthly income. And I was like, what?
through
What?
inner
I
work?
was like, that is like through inner work and through the work that I learned how to shift this with inside of me. What was so fun is I remember at the time inside, I was like, I really want to stop playing small with my life. I know that I'm meant for more and better and bigger. And she talked about stop apologizing for what you wanted. And I was like, this is so fun. And so that's where I invested in myself with this. I remember I was in a job where I thought I wanted to be a manager of the group. And then I was like, well, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I want this. I started tapping into what I really wanted. And then what was so fun is I had every job that I wanted kind of show up at the same time. And so I got to pick what I wanted to do. And the one that I picked was something that just came in out of the blue from something that I did a year ago. I love all the energetic work. So this law of attraction is around your frequency, your vibration. And that's why the emotions were so important. I was in this lower state of emotions and I was attracting in things that were matching my vibration, my emotions, my thinking. And so when I started shifting this and changing this, within 6 months of doing the work, I had called in this job that was doubling a six-figure income.
That's insane.
And I was like, hell yes.
Yeah.
And it was so fun because it was like I got to pick what I wanted to do.
Yeah. You know what, though? You just said something really powerful that I really just want to pause and hone in on. You said that at first you were like, maybe I want this manager job, maybe this. And then it sounded like you really leaned into what you actually wanted. Can you walk us through that? Because I am imagining, like, even for myself, sometimes I don't even know what I actually want because I'm inadvertently capping myself. So walk us through that process. For anyone who's like, I don't know what I want, I just know not this. How did you not get over that, but how did you get to heal
Yeah,
that part so that you were able to actually connect? I've caught myself, Laura. I almost said it.
I know. It is, isn't it interesting how, yeah, that phrase comes up often and I have to like catch myself, like everybody's on their own journey. So that question though, I don't know if you've seen the movie, I'm relating the Secret.
Mm.
There's a movie out that's you can watch.
Documentary?
And there is there's not, it's on Netflix. It's called The Secret. It's with, yeah, I don't remember the actors, but I watch it often because I love it. If you haven't seen it, you got to go check it out. You'll love it. So one of the things in there is the woman in the movie, their kids learned a lesson from the guy who was really into like law of attraction. And she was a disbeliever in it and whatever. But one of the things that got brought up that reflected back to me was they told her, Mom, if you don't know what you want, if you don't know what you want, how can you ask for it? And I was like, okay, that's the law of attraction. It was like, well, what do I want? And so the work that I do now with even women around, a lot of people get hung up on money and they make money God, or they think that they need to apologize for what they really
Mm.
want. And so what I love and what I do is we take money out of the picture. And like, if money wasn't in the picture and there were no limitations and no judgment, and you were to be, I'm in my Zen den right now, I'm by myself. There's nobody here. And I close out the noise. I close out everything around me. I was like, Laura, what do you really want? What do you want? There's no limitations. You're not thinking about anybody else. What do you want? And that's so powerful for me. That's what I do for myself all the time. And so this is where I want to go back to this message of choose you anyway. And so I think about how I did this for myself on the couch with my mom. I did this when I decided to invest in, and it was at the time, it was a good amount of money that I invested in a coaching program. I remember like I chose myself in those moments. And so, and anyways means it doesn't matter. I got to close out the noise of people around me. I was going to do it. I think about where I get this phrase from, and you can see behind me, my little plaque on my dresser is the poem by Mother Teresa, where she says, build anyway, be happy anyway, do good anyway. Even if people think you're crazy, even if you build and it might fall down, even if people think you're, irrational, do it anyway, because it's never between you and them. It's between you and God. And that has stuck with me my whole life. Like this poem has been like, oh, this gives me the courage to choose me and what I'm doing. And what I found is that when I truly do this, when I truly tap into what I want and go for what I want, what happens is the outside world around me, the people, the things mirror back to me how I am believing this, how I'm trusting this myself. And so I'm doing this because I know that when I do this, I have greater impact for the people around me, for the people I love. I, I often get mirrored back. Man, you're so courageous. Man, I can't believe you did that. Man, I'm glad you did that. You changed what you did, helped me change my life. You gave me the courage to do the things that I didn't think I could do. And I'm like, that's not why I set out to do it in the first place. Like any choice or decisions that I make, I do it because it's something that lights me up and that really fills me up. And it gives other people the courage around me to do the things maybe that they really want to do, but they have tapped it down or shut it down.
Yeah, I'm thinking about mothers, single parents, or anyone who's taking care of aging family member, anyone who's like felt bogged down with responsibility. Like what I'm hearing you say, it's like it's not actually selfish to choose you, and that like it's actually beneficial to more than just you. That was so beautifully said.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and it's not even just like this woo woo stuff of you worked on the inner world and then you're just floating out into the abyss, right? Like you doubled your income and your corporate 6-figure income in 6 months. So let's go back
Yeah.
to that part of the story. And then you had your choice on what to
Yes.
choose. So yeah, so like walk us through that. And what was that experience like?
Yeah. It was fun. Like I shared earlier, it was tapping into, I knew I wanted better. I knew that I got to put down trying to prove myself. And that was a big lesson that I learned through all of this. It was like, I got to tap into knowing my worth. Like I literally did this exercise of going through like just seeing and acknowledging myself for all the things that I had done on the corporate side. I'm like, I'd been a top producer. I'm like just going back and knowing like I finished my degree while I was, you know, uh, working as a branch manager for a bank. And at the same time, one pinnacle, I was a top producer, so it was just like I was tapping into like all these, like really acknowledging these things about myself. And then I think what's important about that, and even for your audience, is to, what I noticed is that I was looking for acknowledgement from other people around me, bosses, like peers, whatever. I was trying to prove myself a lot of the times. But what I got to do is when I really just kind of acknowledged who I was, I started trusting myself more and I started seeing who I really was. And I started tapping into like what were my strengths and gifts. Then from that place of empowerment, of seeing who I really was, I was like, what lights me up?
Mm.
And then I started to explore like, okay, do I really want to lead a group of people? Well, let's see. Let's put it out there. And I remember at the time, my boss was like having me basically lead the group. I was doing everything as a leader. And then it was like, I just put it out there. Like, that's what I want. And I remember him coming to me and we sat down in the office and he wanted to give me the job. When I tuned in inside, I was like, this isn't what I really want. And I remember having to tell him, and I loved this boss so much. He was so good to work with. And he graciously was like, well, if that's not what you want, then I totally get it. And I just remember then I was like, well, what do I want? well, maybe I want to have my own book of business. And so I explored that. I gave myself permission to explore it. And I remember I had an opportunity come up and I leaned into it and I was like, ah, that's not really what I want. It's what would look good. It would make me good money. It's a great opportunity. But when I really truly just tapped within myself, I was like, not what I want. And then I had this other job that came up and I was like, ooh, I could feel inside of me. I was like, the growth, the opportunity, this lights me up. I get to work with higher network clients. I get to work with the team. I knew I was going to grow. It was going to help me grow. And I wanted to really just use my gifts as an advisor, right? Advising people and my clients. I was like, this is fun. This is good. So when I tapped into it, I was like, this is what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I got to lean in. And that whole process around negotiating my salary was like, I knew my worth because of all the work that I'd done inside. And I acknowledged the gifts that I have and what I brought to the table. And when I did that, I was able to powerfully show up in the interview and the negotiation process, which is beautiful.
You know what I'm really getting from your story too? It's just every time I've read articles or things outside of you, coaching with you, and at least, but when I've read like other articles in the past about like how to negotiate, the words chase what lights you up and just explore and just be in the energetic power, like it doesn't come up at all. But I will say, like hearing you talk about it, it's like I want what she's having. I was like when the Harry Met Sally, like that movie, it's like, I want what she's having. Because honestly, for my listeners out there, they're probably thinking the same thing. The advice that I've gotten is do your research, know your numbers, look at the amount of money that the company you're trying to like whatever's, and so that you can prove, you know what? It's exactly what you said. It's so that you can prove that you're worth the thing versus you were like, no, I know I am. And also, it sounded like the thing you ended up doing wasn't necessarily what you thought you wanted at first, like you've explored.
Yeah.
And I think that's so powerful because I am, and you know this because you're my coach, but like, I'm sure I'm not the only one. We think that we can't even go after whatever we want until we have it fully nailed down. But like your process sounds like a good time.
The point though, too, which is where I really love to work with women and men, both men and women. But I did not realize that, I'm going to take it back to like, in order to get to this place where I really wanted something and really tap in, is I needed to do this inner work. And I didn't realize that the trauma that had been there, the emotions of this were reflecting on and my positions with my job even. So it was like, I
Wow.
remember like, even with my mom, I tried to like, I wanted her to acknowledge me for what I had been through, but she wasn't in my life at the time. And I was like so badly wanting her to acknowledge me. I wanted to prove to her that I was good enough, that I was a good daughter, to prove that that I could be loved by her. And I remember like always going to her, always trying to over explain or bring her in my world when it was like this push, this force energy. And people don't realize that this, if they don't know how to do this inner work around this trauma, that it shows up in your life in different ways. And it was in my work, it was in other relationships, even my relationship with my husband. I wanted him to prove that he loved me. I wanted to know that he loved me. And, I was like this constant, like proving this, am I good enough? Like, oh, he doesn't love me, like these stories that were running in my mind because I was searching and wanting stuff from my family that honestly, it wasn't healthy. And not everybody's in this relationship and these types of relationships. And I'm not saying you have to have this amount of trauma. That could be little things that, that are there that you get to shift. But I didn't realize that without this inner work of going within myself and really stop pushing down these emotions and what we call them are limiting, the beliefs that were in me, these emotions that were limiting me in my life. And it was like, oh my God, I didn't realize that. And I learned how to shift them and change them. And so, as you know, you've done this work too, is that when you have a limiting belief, a belief or an emotion, how they limit us is by the way we feel. And so when we feel sad, when we feel anger, when we feel these lower emotions, this is just our body's way of telling us that one, we get to work on this. And two, they limit us. They're lies. They're not
Hmm.
our truths. Then the work to do is like, and it's not bypassing, it's not like stuffing them down. It's really acknowledging and learning to heal this stuff. And then what you do is you make room then for emotions that are your truth and that are higher emotions, which is joy. And my biggest one was gratitude. Do you know how many days I woke up complaining about my day, thinking about, "Ugh, I got to do this." And I was like, how I didn't even know this at the time, but it was like, I loved suffering. Suffering was like, if I'm suffering, then I'm doing something right. I'm really working. It was what I was taught. Oh my God. How many of us wake up thinking that if we're not suffering, we must be doing something wrong? And I was like, oh man. And I remember hearing if I woke up every day with what was on my gratitude, what would be there? And I was like, oh my God, nothing would be there because well, not that I wasn't grateful, but I wasn't intentional
Hmm.
about it. And I was like, what if I could love pleasure more than suffering? And that changed my world. The pleasure of what is it that I really want and
Hmm.
desire in my life? What are the relations? How do I want my relationships to be? What kind of job do I want to have? What kind of impact in the world do I want to have? And you know what? That's where money comes in to support me with all that. And that's the work I love to do. I'm telling you, I've been in like the financial space, wealth energetics, that there are stuff you don't even talk about. And I love to shift people's energy around money and wealth.
I love it. And I love that you give about like the complaining because I think that's so relatable. Can you give other examples for those who are listening who aren't familiar with what a limiting belief is? What are some examples of limiting belief, or how has your life changed once you've shifted what that limiting belief was?
Yeah. And I'll give credit to where I lean into, with the mentor, Elise, and she sells community. And this is the work that I love to do with women and men. But Dr. Joe Dispenza was it was a big thing for me. He teaches about breaking the habit of being yourself. I read his book and I remember the limiting belief that was coming up for me was around this get over yourself.
Mm.
I was like, how do you get over yourself? Could you imagine saying that to a little child? Like, get over yourself.
Sometimes we do,
I was like,
right? And that's what's sad. It's like normalized. And honestly, Laura, when you first said it to me, I didn't even realize that's a limiting belief.
yeah. And it's like, we don't get to get over ourselves. Like, no. And maybe it's like, get over that. I'm like, how do you get over that? How do you get over stuff? I get the whole thing about like, like I was an athlete growing up. Like you push your body, like you perform. And I know you get this
Hmm.
too, right? You get this as well. But it was like there's a time where you have like resilience and courage and persistence, and because you're training, but with your emotions, you don't get over it. You get to heal it. And so the other thing is, one of the things that I bypassed for myself was I was like, I am not a victim. I will never be a victim. But yet I was a victim. And I remember being like, I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor. But I skipped over the victim. And I was like, why I think this is so important is that I was like, man, I felt like people were against me. I felt like I remember like the world is against me. Everybody's against me because I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel protected by, my mom, by the man who I thought was my father growing up. I didn't trust. And so it was like I had these thoughts that were running the program of my day. I remember like this was very real for me. I was like, I'd have something really good happen. And I'm like, oh, when's something bad going to happen
Mm.
now? Because it couldn't be good all the time. And I was like, those are lies. And so what happens is the work that I love with this neuroscience and the stuff that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, which is, this is like this stuff I'd never even really tapped into. But I was like, when your mind is, your subconscious mind has these programs of these beliefs, you're going to find them. You're going to look for them everywhere around you. And I wasn't consciously doing this, but it was like, when are things going to go bad? And it
Mm.
was like something would happen. I'm like, see, there it is. Why did this happen? Why did this person backstab me? Why did this person do this to me? Or I'm looking for somebody to hurt me. I'm like, my God, I didn't even realize that was running the show for me. It was like automatic, like when you're driving
Hmm.
sometimes, that you're like the same place, or you're walking sometimes, you're just automatically going. That's what happens with our subconscious mind, this programming that's there. The work that I got to do was like, oh, I get to create a different
Hmm.
identity. I'm breaking the habit of being myself. I'm like, who do I want to be? And what do I get to change? Because this is not helping me at all.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so powerful. And I want to go into, so you do this amazing thing. You doubled your six-figure corporate salary, right? You're doing the thing. And then tell us about any recent pivots or learnings that have happened lately, if you would like to share.
I know. This is so fun. And you're the first person I'm sharing this with live. So this is special for me to do this with you. So July 22, 2025, which was just recently, I was walking on the beach and I was with the same mentor, but now she is a business partner of mine. And so I've been in this space with She Sells, and I've been in here since the beginning, but really just in the space. I've been doing executive coaching. I've been a director of programs and integrator. I remember walking on the beach, and I remember walking, and I decided to release my corporate job.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
And I,
we have to dive deep because I'm sure I'm not the only one who's like, I'm sorry, you doubled your six-figure corporate job. Were there any emotions that went through, or because you had done so much work, was it just, and of course, this makes sense? I'm sure I'm not the only one who's, oh my God, please, this is a secret dream of mine.
this is fun because what I had stepped into started becoming my cage,
Say
and
more
it
about
was no
that.
longer. So I knew in my soul, I'll tell you, the walk on the beach was fun because have felt this for a while. Like I've been growing and growing. And I think about, I don't know if you've heard, I was in yoga class after I did this thing. And one of the things and this is so fun, this is how the universe comes in to support me. But she talked about the hermit crab. Have you heard the story of the hermit crab?
Oh, yes, but the
With the,
audience may
with,
not have.
yes. So I'm thinking about how the hermit crab, they basically, their shell is their life force, right? So, and as they grow out of the shell. It becomes that cage. It becomes like suffocating for them. And so they get to move out of that shell, and they're a little vulnerable, right? They're looking for a bigger shell. They're looking for their next move, this growth. I think about when I was on the beach and walking, I had felt like this cage, this shell that I had been in. I knew I wanted to release it. It no longer lit me up. What really lit me up was really just being in this space of really helping people grow and expand, doing the work that I do within the community, coaching, writing, sharing my story. I'm an author, a co-author in Permission to Be Powerful. And I have this book that is Choose You Anyway, and this movement around helping men and women to choose themselves anyway. And so I was like, man, if that's something I want to write, well, I better choose me. And I remember walking along the beach and feeling like every limiting belief was coming up. And I knew, like, we talk about quantum leaps, and a quantum leap, if you've ever read U Squared, it talks about a quantum leap isn't something that is always rational or logical. And in order to really just call in what I really want, I knew I had to release what no longer felt good for me. And so I remember walking along the beach, and I'm still processing this. This is so fun because, like, there's so much more lessons that are going to come out of this. But I remember for walking, and Elise actually was with me, my mentor and business partner. And we were walking along the beach, and I was releasing so many limiting beliefs that were showing up with this. And again, these beliefs that were like, you're crazy. Why are you going to do this? Like, this is not rational. but I knew this is like my desire, this want inside of me. And I remember thinking, like, I know the water in the ocean is very healing. And it was like, I was speaking it all out and letting it into the water.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, we were walking. I don't know if you've seen like the movie Something's Gotta Give, and they're walking down the beach. And then all of a sudden there's a moment in time where they turn and like they change the conversation. Well, this conversation was positive. I remember it literally like turning around. And as I turned, I just knew in my body it was time to release it. And I was like, yep. And I remember just speaking it out. And once I get back to the car, I'm making the call. And I made the call.
Oh my gosh. I'm processing it too. It wasn't even me who did it. So
Right?
it's been as
I
of this
know.
a little over a week ago. How are you feeling about now?
It's been like I've been on a high. Like it's been so good. But I will tell you, like, I did not realize, when your passion, when this cage, it was a cage. I felt like it became a cage. It wasn't always like this.
Mm-hmm.
But what I realized is that my passion was no longer in this. It was like it took so much for me. I do a lot of work around my energy, around really cultivating joy and gratitude. And I remember like it just started to become heavy. And that was my sign that it was time to release it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I released it and I was like, okay, wow. I felt like, what am I going to do with my time now? But, of course, I'm fully into the she cells world, which is so fun. You think about your energy sucking like over here to like, and it was like I was doing all this work to keep high vibe. And yet I was like, this isn't like my calling. This isn't my purpose. I know this inside because of the work that I do. And I was like, you know what? If I'm this transformational coach, if I'm helping other women to step into their true power and purpose and really just this transformation, I'm a hypocrite if I don't do what I'm telling others to do. And so, like, I knew inside of myself what I needed to do, what I get to do. Not,
Mm-hmm.
and again, it wasn't for anything else, but it was like my own soul calling to do it. And so, and it's been fun. I'm like, but I get to rework these limiting beliefs that come up now around this. And so I know that I am fully supported and I know that I trust myself. So just like when I made that decision with, what I wanted, I was like, I choose that same methodology for myself. And this piece, I was like, what do you want? I'm tuning into it all the time. And I was like, this is what I really want. And guess what? I don't have all the answers and how it's all planned out, but I trust myself. And I know, again, I know my worth. I know what I bring to the table. I know who I am. And I know that I'm fully supported. And I have, like, I look back and again, I bring up Steve Jobs' thing about looking back and connecting the dots. And I have so much evidence that when I trusted in myself, when I followed my passion, and I keep, doing this work, I've seen so not only the six-figure income that I manifested, but I've had so much healing in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I've had transformations around my relationship. I've called in other sources of income for myself, which is something I wanted. And so I know that money can come to us and flow to us in many ways. And I've seen it happen in my life. And now it was like, I get to really lean into this more and the belief of it. And it's fun.
Oh my God, my smile's so big. I'm so excited. I'm excited for you. And Laura, I can guarantee there's probably a lot of people who are listening who were like, oh my God, you were just speaking into words what's in my brain, what I was afraid to admit to. And I would love to connect with you and work with you. So if anyone is thinking that, how can they get a hold of you and be in your energy?
Yeah. So you can follow me on, well, LinkedIn now. And now I can be on LinkedIn and talk about all the
Mhm.
things, which is fun. I get the corporate side of things, but I don't need to get it anymore. You can connect me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. It's just my name, Laura Grabavoy. And then I would love for you to follow my journey with Choose You Anyway. I'll be sharing some of the stuff around the book and around this movement that is really just lights me up about you get to choose you. And so, yeah, that's the best way to
That's amazing.
get a
And I
hold
will
of
put
me
all
or
of that
follow.
in the show notes. So don't worry about writing it down. I've got you. And I have one question that I always ask. my guess. And it is, you are an item at a coffee shop. So it could be a drink or like a goodie or anything. What would you be and why?
Ooh. So my favorite drink is the shaken espresso with hazelnut at Starbucks. So why I love it is because it's deep and dark, just like me. It's a little bit sweet and a little bit of crazy because you shake it up.
Yes.
I like to shake it up. I like to go deep, and I am very sweet and authentic.
You do.
So I'm just like the drink that
You do. And like you
Yes.
give the shot of truth, man. Honestly, like for those listening, Laura the other day, like we were on a call and she was like, Laura, to me, not talking to herself. She was like, Laura, what is it that you're feeling? Because your energy feels off. What is it that you need to release? And I was like, why do you see me so well? But honestly,
Yes.
would not recommend Laura enough.
I love it with you. I know we're on the corporate side of things, we get to change things and we get to change it by who we are and who we're being. And so the way we show up by choosing ourselves anyways is what's so important. So I want your listeners to remember that, to choose yourself, that it doesn't matter the noise around you. It doesn't matter. It's go within and you get to really connect with your own truth and trust yourself and choose you anyway.
Big thanks again to Laura Grabavoy for sharing her story so openly. These conversations are such a reminder that no pivot is too messy, too late, or too unconventional. If something she said resonated, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone you know who needs it. And when you're ready to start your own pivot, head to www.leadintact.com for free resources or book a free 20-minute call with me. I'm here for you.